Okay, Chair, you're live on YouTube whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to this meeting on the 20th of June 2022, Young Children and Pupils Learning Scrutiny Panel. We have an agenda this morning. Agenda number 1, apologies for absence. Have we any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Philippa Strawy.
Okay then, can we have that recorded, please? Item 2, declarations of any interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest on this subject? No. Okay. Can that be recorded, please? Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Can we approve the minutes of the 25th of April 2022 as a true record?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah.
Can we have that recorded, please? Thank you.
Chair, could I just make a comment, please? It's Councillor Hilawi.
Yes.
Could we just note that on page 9 that we do remember the comparisons of previous year's data and the inclusion of Nunthorpe School in the next paragraph in the data that comes into the report, because I think that's very important. When I went through them, I just wanted to highlight that, please. Thank you.
Yes. Can we have that changed, Georgina? Yes. Okay then. Thank you, Councillor Hilawi. Item 4, education, learning and overview. Officers of the Children's Services are in attendance to today's meeting to provide a scrutiny panel and an overview of the main service areas within their remit and outline their priorities, key issues and challenges for their year ahead. We have Rob on the line. Rob, could you take over now, please, and give us a presentation?
Certainly. Thanks, Chair. It's going to be verbal and very happy to take questions as we go, if that helps for clarity. As you'll have noted, we've had a significant period of time, for a significant period of time, we've had disruption within education due to COVID. That's settling, but not settled. And we can discuss that later on down the agenda with the COVID update, but it is settling, which means the business as usual activities kick back in. So teaching and learning rather than trying to keep schools open due to COVID infections, etc. The result, though, is that government have had a look at areas around achievement and have introduced a white paper, which is significant, and it categorises different areas of the country or local authorities against outcomes. So there is a strong desire within the white paper that it'll increase outcomes for our young people. And Middlesbrough will be a recipient of additional funding to do that. Now, it's very early days within the white paper, so it's still at that stage where there's a lot of formative thinking going on. And not all of the information from the white paper is actually tangible yet. So there is ideology in some parts of it, you know, there's ambition there. Some of the detail around how that's going to be achieved isn't there yet. You know, it's still in development. But as a result, this year will definitely, from an education perspective, will definitely be focused around the white paper. So that is around getting schools to work together to improve outcomes for our young people. And I'm sure you'll be interested in updates around that as the year goes on. It'll remain for quite some time. Obviously, changes of government, etc., could have an impact on that if that happened. But otherwise, you're looking at a full academised school system by 2030 across the UK, across England and Wales. So there's certainly a significant impact from that. Separate to that, there's been a green paper released, which is the stage before policy, so for consultation, and that's around SEND, and that very clearly brings AP, the alternative provision that's been at scrutiny previously. It brings AP into the SEND arena. So what we're seeing there is a real focus around trying to fix the system, and I use that word cautiously, but I think there's acknowledgement from central government that the high needs budget, which supports the SEND system, is significantly overspent in local authorities in some local authorities across the country, and that the position isn't sustainable. So some kind of reforms required. The Green Paper seeks to do that by looking at more young people will have their needs met within the mainstream, which means significant workforce training needs for the mainstream system. So you look at how the Green Paper, if it turns into policy, how that green paper will work with the white paper. And clearly it means that the mainstream will have some significant workforce and challenges and achievement challenges over the next few years. So it'll be something that we'll have to keep an eye on. Separate to all of that, the introduction of the funding or a desire to expand, improve and deliver family hubs is something that we'll be concentrating our attention on. So that takes you to the school readiness part of education. So the preparation for our young people to get them ready for school, your children's centres and the outreach that goes with that, your nurseries, that all contributes towards getting that child to be school ready. Middlesbrough, for many reasons, has some significant challenges in this area. So we'll be cautiously looking at the funding and opportunities around development of family hubs and make that as multi-agency as possible. So again, another area that I'm sure that you would like to be kept abreast of. However, as areas of scrutiny topics which you'll decide in a future agenda item, they're areas that are very new and are still in development. However, we have got significant pressures around sense efficiency, which is very well developed and an area that may be something the chair and members would want to go into in greater depth. So that's around how we got enough SEND places, have we got the right SEND schools, etc. So catering for all need and balancing that off with the new developments that we've just discussed around the green paper, white paper. So an area where there's going to be some significant development and certainly worth keeping a very close eye on. Another area will be around attendance. There's been some changes very recently around attendance. I think certainly from a local authority and DFE perspective, there's been an acknowledgement that the importance of attendance. So if you've got that young person in school, then you know exactly where they're at. You know that there's professionals surrounding them and trusted confidence, etc. So from a safeguarding perspective, it's a really strong protective factor. And from an achievement point of view, if your bum's not in the seat, then you can't learn. So from both sides of the spectrum, it's really important that our young people are attending to the fullest. So that came to the fore during COVID when it was really urgent that we knew could identify where all of our young people were when schools were shutting and reopening and etc. And the status quo wasn't necessarily there. That continues this year and beyond, and there'll be some new duties expected from a local authority around attendance and driving that attendance and working with schools as best as possible. We have already got some work that we've developed in Middlesbrough called VCAP, which you've heard about previously, the Vulnerable Children's Attendance Project, and it'll be looking, and that's been very strong and really impacted our attendance figures positively, particularly with our most vulnerable families. So it'll be an expansion of that. It'll be more of that. And recently, as recently as I think it was last week, it was announced in the press that we've been chosen by DFE to be a pilot area around attendance, building on some of the good work that we've done already. So again, that might be an area that the chair and members may want to focus on. So what I've tried to describe to you very briefly is around where there was national big changes are, which will definitely encompass local work for Middlesbrough Council. However, there's priorities within that around attendance and sense efficiency that are very specific to our local needs and probably worthy of further attention if you choose. Another area will be around serious youth violence, which would only be of relevance to this scrutiny panel if it was describing the work that we do in schools. So it's whether that's something that will be looked at here or elsewhere, but it remains a priority for education and partnerships, and we'll continue delivering work around that area. It'll be delivered through our youth justice plan, so through youth offending in schools with our young people. So I don't know if there's any questions or points of clarity, because I've talked for a while there. I don't know if anyone wants to ask anything.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I'll open it up if anybody wants to ask a question. Councillor Lowy, you can see your hand up.
Did you say me, Chair?
Yes,
okay,
Councillor Lowy.
Yeah, given that you've just mentioned, Rob, some of the reforms potentially with the green paper and the SEND provision, and given that we've just done a report on that, I wonder how we can incorporate that since we've just done the report. 'Cause we're sort of going to a new area potentially, and yet we've just finished looking at that. So I'm not quite sure how we could include it or not, maybe.
So in the area that I'm describing around sense efficiency, it's specific to the new school, the free school wave that's opened, and it's open currently, and it's also around the development of the new special schools and the provision going forward as that white paper, green paper start having an impact. So it's specific around sufficiency rather than the broader SEND provision, but obviously that would be yourselves who would decide whether that's relevant or not.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just not quite sure where to go with that, given the point that we're at with SEND. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you there, Councillor. It seems to be like a bit of an overlap. Maybe we could have an update in a few months' time to try and tie it in. We could discuss that at a later meeting, I think. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Rob, you said that there's a problem with some of the very young children, and the hubs are going to get involved and try and encourage them to move on a little bit. What about the areas that don't have hubs?
Yeah, absolutely, and that would be possibly, without suggesting scrutiny topics to that would be possibly an area that you would look at around is the support for all of our in-need families rather than just specific areas of the town. But that's where the family hub funding is focused. It is supposed to be a universal provision.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Lowy? Oh, hang on. Councillor Saunders, please, first. Councillor Lowy? Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Robert, just on obviously the topic there where you mentioned the serious youth violence, I think that's a very important topic to look at, especially what's happening in certain parts of the town. I'd just like to support that if that's a possibility to look at. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Lowy?
Yes, Chair. Just jumping ahead a bit in the agenda and aware that we're going to discuss later possible scrutiny topics. And one of the areas mentioned there is looking at provision for young children. I think what Rob's just talked about, family hubs, etc., and engagement with families, that would come into that potentially. So we could cover that in that way. I think that might be a useful thing of joining areas of scrutiny topic.
Chair, could
Yes.
I respond?
Yes, Rob.
So I think Councillor Louise probably phrased that better than I have. So when we're talking about the sense efficiency, it's the provision of places. That's what I mean specifically, not as we've just done in SEND scrutiny, where it's went and looked at the whole of the SEND arena. It's just specifically, is there enough spaces for our young people? And you're right, it could extend to other areas as well, because that what we're seeing post COVID is an increase in certain areas of demand. So as you keep a watch and brief on rates of exclusion, also EHCPs, sense efficiency, these are all areas that you've previously looked at recently, and they're areas that are showing an increase in demand. So there's some kind of unmet need in the system. So we need to make sure that we're catering for that.
Thanks for that, Rob. You mentioned the white paper and the green paper. Obviously, you've read these. Could you send us a copy, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. Has anybody else got anything? No. Do you want to have anything else you want to continue with, Rob, or is that your lot?
It was to provide it in a brief overview, but I can go in depth in any of those if required. But they are the key priorities for this year. Okay,
then we'll move on. Moving on to the next item 5, agenda, setting a scrutiny panel works programme. Georgina, from Democratic Service, would you like to present your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just to highlight that at the beginning of each municipal year, scrutiny panels discuss the topics that they would like to review during the coming year, and work programmes are useful as they provide some structure to the scrutiny panel's activity, and they also allow for effective planning and preparation of work. So referenced in the report, before members is a list of topics which are anticipated to be of particular interest to the scrutiny panel. A topic that was agreed last year, which has not been investigated by the panel, is school meals and physical education. So the panel may decide that it wishes to investigate that topic. The topical issues included in the report, the impact of COVID on learning, every child deserves the best start in life, leading and delivering early childhood services, pupil premium and sexual abuse in schools and colleges. And the suggestions that we've received for the panel, air pollution outside schools and the impact on school attendance, teaching children about budgeting, digital inclusion for children and young people, and children who struggle to make friends at school. And also, Rob's outlined some suggestions earlier, such as serious youth violence in schools, SEND sufficiency and the free school waive. So when considering its work programme, the scrutiny panel's asked to ensure that the topics agreed for inclusion meet the criteria that that's detailed at paragraph 13 of the report, and it's also recommended that the scrutiny panels use the guide and the prompt at Appendix 1 to allow them to select topics which will add value to the council's work. So it's suggested that the panel identifies 2 main topics that I'd like to investigate during the new municipal year, and those will then be submitted to the overview and scrutiny board for approval. So it's over to members to discuss which they feel would be the most appropriate topics to select for this year's work programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Georgina. Has anybody got any suggestions? Councillor Lowey's got a hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. I think that the report, the first 3 aspects of the report about, for example, impact of COVID on learning, particularly 4 and 5-year-olds, every child deserves the best chance in life, which is the best start, which is early, and leading and delivering early childhood services. I think they're 3 topics that could be put together, because aspects of that is all dealing with young people and learning. And given the information that Rob's talked about today about looking at children's services in family hubs, etc., I think something around early learning for young children does affect, and I've looked at paragraph 1, the Appendix 1, and it does affect a lot of children in our town, right across the town. Obviously, we have young learners. So I think a scrutiny investigation into what provision there is and how it operates, and looking at new changes coming along the way, could be a really useful topic to get into, really, and there'll be lots to investigate there, I think.
Yeah, valid point, Councillor. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Dennis. Given the age and the time we're living in, I thought perhaps free school meals is important. And I would also suggest attendance. I think we really need to look at attendance of pupils in school. That's my opinion. It's a one. Okay, Dennis.
Yeah, valid point. It's when I worked in a school in Whitby, if I always remember the head teacher saying, if you missed 4 hours in a week, that was one grade down in your GCSEs. So if you were expecting a C, you were going to get a D in them subject areas. So that's just half a day. So if you're missing weeks and weeks of school, you're doomed to fail. So yes, attendance is very important.
Attendance, yeah.
I'm quite interested in the violence part of it, because that we have lots of problems throughout the town, and we've got a lot of disillusioned children, vandalism going on. I watch them closely in my area, and are these kids, are these our excluded kids? Are these part of this group that have been excluded, or part of friends of them? Is it their attendance down? I think that's a good subject to investigate, because you know, we're looking at maybe, you know, comprehensive style, you know, 11 plus, I would imagine. But I think that would be a good subject to go for. And you know, I don't know. It's open. It's an open debate. Anybody else got any suggestions? Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, I just totally agree with you, Chair. Thanks about the youth violence. As you say, it happens whether it happens in the schools or it certainly happens outside the schools. So I think that would be very, as it says in what Rob's suggestions is, you know, it's a massive concern with Cleveland Police as well. You know, so yeah, I think that could be looked at in more detail. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I would go with Councillor Nugent actually on school meals. If this has been carried forward from last time, I think this is a very important one. Nutrition makes a big difference to children, and if they're not getting the right type of meals, then they're not going to be learning because they just won't be with it. So I really do think that we really need to look into school meals, see what they're getting, see whether it is, you know, enough for them. That's just my opinion. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Higgins, you've got your hand up. I'll come to you in a minute, Mary.
Okay, Dennis.
Thanks, Chair. And first of all, can I apologise for being late?
You're on detention.
Oh, how long, Chair?
It's a mandatory hour.
Can I agree with about the school meals?
I agree with that.
Because it seriously needs looking into about who receives it and who can't receive it. The best teacher in the world cannot teach a hungry child. And there's some children going to school hungry. And so for the rest of the day, all they're thinking about is, what am I going to eat when I go home? So I think it's very, very important subject. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I agree with that. Councillor Nugent?
Yeah, could I just agree with you, Dennis, when we're talking about attendance and some of the disruptive behaviour that people like myself see all the time, even out of school hours. So I think there's a problem there and I think it needs to be addressed. How? I don't know. Perhaps we'll ask Rob.
Thank you, Councillor.
Dennis.
Yeah, well, we'll look at that, I think, but you know, the fundamental thing here is the schools are there to educate, you know, morals, manners and stuff like that come from the home. So that's another subject. But Councillor Wilson, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. School meals, nutrition and physical education, can't they be rolled into one?
Yes, I think that was what we discussed last year. I think it was Councillor Story brought it up, and we were going to have a look at it. But we could have a quick look at that as, you know, a short item and maybe take 3 on board if you wish. You know, we could get mainly a report on the schools, who's providing what, and who's providing what physical education as part of their curriculum. We could do something like that. Anybody, any more thoughts on that? Councillor Halawi?
I agree that possibly the examination of free school meals would be possibly a short topic because we would recruit people to give us information about what's happening in individual schools and just see the provision. I don't see that as a big in-depth topic necessarily, unless we uncovered something that we didn't anticipate. I think we're quite straightforward to find information about the provision of free school meals in the town. And I don't know whether it's good or bad, but I would think that most schools who have challenges are addressing the needs of the children as far as they can. In my experience, that is the case. So I would suggest, as you do, that could be a short topic and we could look at other areas which could be bigger topics to scrutiny.
Okay, then. I suggest Georgina, can I? Oh, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, sorry to share. Just one thing. I know one academy in the town actually runs out of food at lunchtime, and that's another side of school meals. 'Cause if that's happening, kids can't be getting fed. And I believe Councillor Lowy mentioned that a hungry child will not concentrate. So I think we need to have a look at that school meals and see what's going on in that respect.
Yeah, fine. So we've got a couple of things there. Georgina, what's the timeline on this, please? Do we need to make a decision today?
Yeah, that's what I propose, that you make a decision today. So we've had the topic, a few members have mentioned about the topic of school meals and physical education. And a few members have also suggested we look at serious youth violence and the impact. Is it the impact of education that members are concerned about?
And attendance associated around that.
Right, yeah. And the other suggestion was early learning for young children. So I think that covers everything that members have mentioned today. So it's just to get an agreement of which topic the panel would like to look at first and in what order.
Right, I'm chair, I'll take lead on this. So can we have a look at the school meals and physical education first item, make that a short one. We can probably get that done, we get most of it done before the end of this academic year. Yeah, that's a pull of information. And then we can go into the, as one of our main subjects, the violence and attendance associated in that. And then obviously the early learnings, we could take that up as well. Rob's got his hand up.
Yeah, if I can provide a steer, the work around serious youth violence is delivered through youth offending in the main, but with a lot of partners involved, some of which takes place in the school, but the youth violence isn't necessarily taking place in school, except so I don't want to have misled anyone by describing it like that. I don't know, and I know we've previously discussed whether it was better to sit in another scrutiny panel with kind of the community focus. So obviously you'll decide where it sits, but the serious youth violence element related to schools is the delivery of programs with the school, working with the school, rather than occurring in the school. And I'm aware you described other areas there around attendance, etc. as well, but it's just in the sense of what we would bring relevant to this scrutiny topic, scrutiny panel.
Yeah, I understand that, Rob. Does everybody make that? Has everybody got that clear? You know, we're not going to be looking at that. It's the provision in the schools around that subject. Councillor Lowy?
I agree with Rob. I think it's a bit beyond the remit of the topics for this scrutiny panel. What we would find out about from schools is their policy and provision for violence potentially in school. But a lot of the violence, I would suggest, is outside of the schools, within the communities, as Rob just said. So I think that's a topic. I mean, we can look at school provision regarding violence and the overlap with outside of school, but I think that's not a main topic for education because the violence isn't in the schools. The schools just follow their procedures to deal with it. If it is in schools, it's the community issue that we're faced with. And we know there's areas in the town where there's particular tensions, but they are within the community, not in the schools.
Chair, would it be possible to kind of reword it a bit? And maybe my suggestion would be that the topic is youth offending and partnership working with schools, because I think that covers what's been mentioned today. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep, sounds fine to me. Yeah, Councillor Wilson, you're waving your hand.
Yeah, on that advanced attendance, I believe we may have spoke about this in coaching communities, Chair. So it might be worth on whether the Chair of Kiss might tell you that one to see where we go with that one, Georgina.
Yeah, I think with a lot of topics that do kind of cross over to other panels, but as long as we look at partnership working with schools, I think we can undertake an investigation of that topic as long as we focus on schools and learning and education.
Yeah, we all agree on that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll reword that as one of our, and then we go obviously the COVID for what council are we? The young learning. Yeah, and our 3 subjects. Would that be fine with everybody?
Yeah.
We all got a few nodding heads. Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
Right. Good stuff. Thank you for that. Where were we? Oh, item 6 on the agenda. Final draft. Final report. Special educational needs and disabilities. Send. Georgina, can you provide a brief outline of the report and share the draft recommendations, please?
Yes, Chair. So members have had sight of the draft final report on the topic of SEND, which was circulated with the agenda pack for today's meeting. The aim, terms of reference and background information are detailed on page 2 of the report, and then information in respect of term of reference A is included on pages 3 through to 6. And that includes key data and graphs in respect of children and young people with SEND in Middlesbrough, including their individual characteristics and primary needs. Information in respect of term of reference B is included on pages 6 through to 8 and covers the range and impact of SEND, referencing the 4 main areas of need, which are cognition and learning, communication and interaction, physical, medical and sensory, and also social, emotional, mental health. Information in respect of term of reference C is included on pages 9 through to 17 and provides details of how the local authority works with early years providers, schools and colleges to identify and support children and young people with SEND. And this section of the report includes the evidence that was gained from the Early Years Primary Support Service, Green Lane Primary Academy, Caldercoats Primary Academy, Rosedene Eastside, Discovery Primary Academy, Ayrsham Primary School and Middlesbrough College. Information on term of reference D is included on pages 17 through to 20 and provides details on how education, social care and health work collectively to deliver SEND provision at a local level. And this references information on education, health and care plans and the SEND strategic group and the work and its work streams, and also other key developments in that area. Information on term of reference E is included on pages 21 to 24 and covers the views, wishes and covers how the local authority ensures the views, wishes and feelings of the young person or the child and their parents are gained, and it references co-production and evidence received from parents for change. And information on term of reference F is included on pages 24 through to 28, and it covers best practice strategies in supporting children and young people with SEND, and it references guidance that was published by the Education Endowment Fund and the local government association. There's also a section in the report that includes additional information. So this is information that came to light throughout the panel's investigation, which didn't particularly fit into one of the terms of reference of the review, and that's referenced on pages 28 through to 31, and it covers the increase in demand in the local area and the fact that schools and settings are under pressure to meet the needs of children and young people with SEND and also those at risk of exclusion. The conclusions are detailed on pages 31 through to 33, A to K, and the conclusions summarise the main points of the report and identify the key areas for further consideration. So what I'll do now is I'll share the draft terms of reference and the draft recommendations. So these are just for the panel's consideration. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
And I'll just go through them. I'll try and be quick. Just go through them so that members are aware of what's being proposed. So recommendation A, that awareness raising activities are undertaken to ensure that all of Middlesbrough schools and settings are aware of the local authorities' explicit offer of targeted inclusion support. So there is a need for schools and settings to receive clear and concise information on what targeted support can be accessed, what is part of the core offer open to all schools and settings without requiring a statutory assessment and plan, and the additional offer that settings and schools can tap into by using their own resources. Recommendation B, that work is undertaken with legal services and the data protection officer to develop an effective transition planning process for all stages of education, which addresses the restrictions associated with GDPR. For example, we've been in touch with Durham County Council, who has developed an electronic process for primary school head teachers to share the names and students, the names of students who may require additional transition support into secondary education. So the wording informing parents that information will be shared to support transition has been included in the admissions brochure on the council's website and in the secondary application forms and offer letters. And this has all been through their legal team and their GDPR team. So that's been signed off by them. Recommendation C, that the local authority links up with Middlesbrough College to provide placements for the college's supported internships programme. So supported internships have been introduced at Middlesbrough College to give a greater focus on preparing young people with special educational needs and disabilities with the skills needed for adulthood and employment. D, that to support continuous improvement, a regular cycle of SEND reviews takes place across all educational settings and that outcomes are reported to this panel. E, that SEND annual reports are published to demonstrate how data, intelligence and feedback has been used to support strategic planning arrangements and ensure that there is sufficient local provision and support. F, that work is undertaken with the integrated transport service to ensure and identify solutions to ensure that children and young people with SEND are provided with travel assistance to enable them to access respite care. G, that to further promote effective partnership working, a local area partnership agreement is developed which outlines how partners will work together and sets out responsibilities and agreed working arrangements. As investing time in and fostering relationships and partnerships, given their importance to the local SEND system, is highly important, as there is a risk that those relationships can change very quickly. H, that the collaborative work undertaken by education, social care and health is commended, and that work continues to drive further improvement in the SEND system. Given the increasing demand of provision to support those children and young people with SEND, it is vital that work continues to expand specialist provision and enable mainstream settings to provide support. And finally, that data intelligence is collected, analysed and reported on to demonstrate the specific strategic approaches and practices that have been effective in supporting children and young people with SEND, enabling them to achieve the best possible educational outcomes and preparing them effectively for adulthood. So I'll stop sharing now. So sorry I went on for a bit there, but yeah, it's just to kind of get the panel's agreement that they're happy with the draft report and also the proposed draft recommendations. So it's just for any members to comment or make any suggestions, really. Thank you, Chair.
I'll open that up for anybody to say anything. Councillor Lowy.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of the recommendations that you just went through there, Georgina, you mentioned various points that would be looked at in the future. And I think it would be important to put into the recommendations that certain types of information be fed back to this panel. You mentioned that, but I think we need a time scale on that, you know, within every so many months or frequently, but with a time indicator. I think that, for example, in D, you said with this would be reported regularly back to the panel. I think it needs to be every so many months, or so that it doesn't get lost, so that regularly isn't such a general word as well. So I think that when we put a recommendation in of that nature, that certain topics are fed back to this panel, sort of on a rota system, I suppose, when it's appropriate. But I feel we might be in danger of losing sight of some of the recommendations if we don't get feedback on them.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Caroline, when do you do a review on your systems? Have you got a dateline? Do you do it once a month, 2 months, 3 months?
So, well, it depends on which area you're looking at. So we, as part of the SEND Strategic Group, we give regular updates to the SEND Strategic Group. We also review our SEND strategy on an annual basis. So that SEND strategy has got our priorities. So the priorities are about the strategic leadership. It's about making sure there's sufficient provision, co-production with young people, the preparation for adulthood, training for our workforce, SEND sufficiency, etc. So we have work plans for each of those priorities, which we report on for each SEND strategic group, but we also do an annual update on each of those work plans. So happy to bring information if you want it every 6 months. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, fine. Councillor Lowy, 6 months, I would say would be fair, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so, Chair. I think it would be really good, yeah, that we keep.
Has anybody else anything on there? Because considering it gets done annually, I think 6 months is like an interim report, then you can get an annual report. You know, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Chair, just to clarify, Councillor Halawi had mentioned about, I think it was recommendation D, was it? So it speaks about that a regular cycle of SEND reviews takes place across all settings. So I don't know whether the service area wants to advise how regular those reviews take place and how frequently the panel can receive an update on those.
Can I come in there?
Yeah, Caroline.
Yeah, so we have just launched our next round of SEND reviews for all settings. So that's early years, schools and post-16. Those have just started this month, and they'll take until next year to complete all settings. And the last time we did the reviews was in 2019.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll get an update on that next year. Yeah, is everybody happy with that? Yeah. Anybody else got anything to say about these recommendations? Councillor Lowy.
If just a bit of clarification, it's just a question, please, for Georgina. On recommendation F, you talked about transport and respite. Was that an issue that we discussed? Have I forgotten that a little bit?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was an issue that was raised by Parents for Change. They'd said that a lot of the residents that are involved with their group had mentioned that they had issues with arranging transport for respite appointments. So it is detailed in the final report, so that recommendation's being put forward to try and address that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No. Councillor Lowy?
Yes, Chair, thanks. When I was reading the draft report, a general point came to my mind based on a specific issue, which was the ability to have a commentary on certain things which may raise questions in one's mind when one is reading the report. So, for example, on page 21, as we got the document, and I don't think it was the same page numbers as the report, Georgina, I noticed a difference in numbers as I was scrolling down. But paragraph 11 says that we have fewer EHCPs in our town in comparison with regional and national figures. And then the next thing seems to say that we have more children with SEND issues. So the question that would come to your mind would be, are we absolutely sure that all of our children with SEND have sufficient and ready access to getting an EHCP? Or is there that there's some more difficult steps in there? Or it doesn't seem to tie in that you'd have more children with SEND potentially and fewer EHCPs. So I just felt that when you have a question in your mind like that, when you're reading a report, whether we get a comment to say, you know, our EHCPs are being addressed within a timely manner and they're all being, you know, sorted and given, etc. So I don't know whether even that could be something in the report to have a commentary on such an idea, or whether within the recommendations that could come through in that respect. So, for example, the recommendation might say that we get regular reassurance that EHCPs are being conducted in a timely manner and that they are addressed sufficiently. So the problem might be, you might think, well, are there some children with real needs that are not managing to get the EHCP for whatever reason?
Caroline, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, just to come in. So the figures might be relating to the SEND population as a whole. So a lot of SEND children won't have an education, health and care plan.
Yeah.
So we might have fewer education health care plans in Middlesbrough compared to our neighbours because of our inclusion model and the support that the children are receiving. So they might not then need to be referred for an education health and care plan. So I don't know if we want to clarify that somewhere along in the report or as part of the 6 monthly reporting.
I think that'd be really helpful, please. That clarification helps understand the background to that, I think, Caroline. Do you see what I mean? When you're reading it without that information, you have lots of questions come into your mind.
Yep, I agree. Okay, moving on. Anything else?
Chair, I think you were on mute there.
Sorry, I'd muted myself.
Yeah, so it's just to get agreement from the panel that they approve the report and the recommendations, and that those will be submitted to the Overview and Scrutiny Board to be ratified. Thank you.
Are we all happy with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay, fine. Moving on to item 7, education COVID recovery. Rob, could you give us a quick briefing on this, please?
Certainly, Chair. So as I inferred earlier, when I'd said around we'd had significant disruption linked to COVID, and now it's more business as usual activity in schools. And that's very clearly happening now through exam periods, etc. And you can really see schools back to their normal routine of teaching and learning. However, there is a mild COVID increase in the rate at the moment, and you can see that with absences, and it's something we'll keep a close eye on. But I think we're all very familiar with the routine now. This will go up, and at some point it'll go back down. That's the bit in between around oversight over any vulnerable children. If they're not in school, where are they? Are they safe? And any missed learning. So making sure that there's remote working provision, etc., within our schools. And we're very confident that that is supplied as and when required. So it's just to make sure that, or keep a watch and brief on the rates, and if they are increasing, all of that kind of stuff kicks in. And I'll keep it there for now, Chair, unless there's more on that, but there isn't really much more to describe. I think everyone's really familiar with it.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody? Any comments? Anybody? Personally, I think we're past the worst now. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's hope it's upwards and onwards for everybody now. Moving on then. Item 8, Overview and Scrutiny Board update. There was a meeting held on the 27th of April, and the board considered the Chief Executive's Forward Works Programme, topic of school exclusions with the principal of Unity Academy and the regional head teacher of the River Tees Multi-Academy Trust, update from the Chief Executive, Economic Development, Environment, Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel, and update from Scrutiny chairs. There was also a meeting on the 11th of May. The board considered Executive Forward Works Programme, update for the executive member for neighbourhood safety, and executive member from adult and political engagement. There was two excellent reports from both members, Tony Grange and Luke Mason. Update on the chief executive, information on schools exclusions gathered from school visits. Unfortunately, my school visit was postponed due to the loss of a member of staff, which is very sad. But there was some good feedback from our members on them visits. The Young Scrutiny Panel's final report on sufficiency and permanency, and the Young Children's Social Care and Scrutiny Panel final report on local working with the Children's Services perspective. Proposed meeting, going on to the next item on our agenda, proposed meeting schedule for 22-23. Could we agree the date for the next municipal year, please? I think you've all been circulated a calendar, a list. Anybody got any comments? No, are we all in agreement with the date being sent to you? Right, okay. I'll take that as no dissent, so it's agreed. All the dates are set in stone now. Sorry, we can't go back. Anything else anybody would like to bring up? Oh, Councillor Lowy.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, I did go to visit two schools. I'm just referring back to this exclusion issue that you mentioned there. And I think it'd be worth mentioning in the minutes of this meeting that we were very impressed by the work going on in the schools that we visited, to see what arrangements they are making to avoid excluding young people. The comment that I want to make as well is that we did receive some written reports from some other schools about what they're doing, but I would suggest that we try to visit schools still, to look at what they're doing, to discuss in person with the staff what's going on, and to visit the schools. We walked around the schools, we had insights into the classroom, what was going on, we spoke with the management, and I think that was much more helpful than reading a report from the school. I think it'd be really helpful to suggest that all schools be visited if at all possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, let's get down there to the coalface and we'll have a look. We can always, you know, we can always arrange this during the academic year, say after September, because obviously there's a new intake of kids now coming in, and we could always arrange this through Caroline if that would be possible. Caroline. Was a nod of the head, so I would say yes. So we'll try and program that in this year for school visits, and we'll try and get round to every secondary school and primary school if we can, you know, within reason. And obviously it depends on people's timetables and circumstances and meetings and etc. So, and it obviously depends on the schools as well. So, has anybody got anything else? Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, Dennis. I'm just going to ask. Are we looking at the panel going to various other schools randomly, or are we looking at perhaps the schools that we're governors already in? If we're a governor in a school, is that the schools you would prefer, or would you prefer us to visit outside our own remit?
I would say we try and see every school, you know. Yeah. Some members can go to some schools and some go to others, and we can feed back in and, you know, get a general consensus of opinion and what's going on. Okay. Councillor Higgins, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify that Georgina would be the one to go through if we wanted to go to a school, so she could make the arrangement. Is it Georgina that would do that? Not for us to just say, oh, I'll go into that school.
No. Appointments only, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'll have to Saunders. Sorry, Chair. I was just going to mention that I understand Caroline, who supports OSB, had made arrangements for members to attend a few schools already. So we just we don't really want to attend the same schools that have already been visited. So I'll speak to Caroline and we'll come up with some sort of strategy to arrange visits. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As well, Georgina has really took the words out of my mouth there. The visits came under the OSB. We took it on board about the exclusions, the concerns, and as Councillor Lowy has already said, it was I only could manage to visit the academy at Ormsby. I was very impressed in the work that the teachers and the heads are doing to help these kids stay into school. So yes, I think it's a really good idea to get some site visits up to the schools. And as Georgina has already alluded, that Caroline did all the organisation really through OSB. So thanks for that, Chair.
Councillor Halawi, you had your hand up.
Yeah, we visited Outwood Academy, Ormsby and King's Academy in Colby Newham. And I think there are 7 secondary schools in the town. So it might be interesting to programme visits into those schools so that they know that the Children Learning Scrutiny panel are keen to be updated on what they're doing regarding both exclusions or any other issues they might like to bring to our attention.
Yep, fine. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think we take this forward. Yep. Okay. So I'll leave that for Georgina and Caroline to coordinate and get some dates. But I would say the next academic year for after September, I would say, you know. Has anybody else got anything else need to bring up? No.
Councillor
Saunders?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention, I'm not sure what I know Councillor Hobson's here, I believe. Is she? Yeah. No. What it is, it's just the meetings, you know, obviously we're talking about face-to-face meetings. I don't know whether you want a quick debate about whether we want to go into town hall or what. I think it'll be a good feedback to everybody who's concerned to see what the panel think about getting back together into the town hall or virtual. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, it's a valid point. Yes, I know there was emails sent round from Sylvia Reynolds with regard to starting to take the meetings live into the town hall. I'll kick this off, and then we'll do a round robin. Personally, unless it's a major decision, I would prefer to have it virtual. How's that? That's me. Go around the table. Councillor Hobson, what do you think?
Thanks, Chair. I think there's something for both, actually. I think it's quite nice occasionally to meet, and I think you get more done if you meet in person. I think you know the chats before and the chats after make a big difference sometimes. But I'm quite happy for virtual meetings if there's no decisions to be made. But I do think occasionally, and what I'm saying with corporate parenting is that I think we should do a few virtual and then one that is a face-to-face meeting. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Councillor Donna Jones, what's your opinion?
I'm easy. I prefer to be sat here, but I also, like Chris has just said, to see everybody face to face.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
I prefer face to face, Chair, all the way through. I feel you get a better feel for what's going on. It's nice to be in touch with everybody in person. I just feel face to face is better. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Halawi, how would you feel?
Thank you, Chair. I feel that having virtual meetings offers more flexibility both to councillors who attend and to officers. I mean, I can fit more meetings into the day if I don't have to travel backwards and forwards to the town hall and to other venues. I think that when we invite guests as well, it's much more important for them to be able to fit this meeting into their day without overlapping and taking too much time if they have to travel, especially when we get guests from other areas. And I just think it gives us a broader scope potentially to be more engaging. And so, for example, people who might work full time, who have work commitments, can maybe pop into a meeting for an hour and a half. But if they have to travel and come back, it's sort of a half a day out of their workplace. So I think that by having virtual, we're offering much more scope to many more people. And okay, it'd be nice to meet occasionally face to face, but overall, I think virtual are much more flexible and much more productive and much more inclusive of a broader range of people.
Valid point. Councillor Nugent?
I personally prefer a face-to-face meeting. I feel that you have the opportunity of meeting and talking to people, and I just feel sometimes it's more productive when you've met somebody and you can talk about matters afterwards or before the meeting. So I personally would go for a return to the face-to-face meetings.
Okay, Councillor Saunders?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I personally support face-to-face. I totally agree with what Councillor Lowry said. It's more convenient to sit at home if you can, you know, and do a meeting. But I just think you can't beat face-to-face. The atmosphere in the hall, and you can talk to, you know, I mean, it's very nice. Yes, we're all talking together now, but we're all going to leave this meeting and probably that'll be it, you know. But I really just think getting back to know, we all used to, thank heavens COVID's finished, or more or less. We were all used to do this before COVID come in, and I really enjoyed getting together and just talking. It's just a totally better atmosphere. So I'm all for getting back in that town hall and getting a bit of.
Yes, I agree with that.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Higgins, I know you're substitute today, but what's your views on this?
Well, I like this, but I think it's best for face-to-face meetings. Sorry.
Yeah.
Chair, can I
Okay.
just come in there?
Yeah, Georgina.
So, members' views will be noted and will be fed back to the head of Democratic Services. However, I do believe that this decision will be made at full council. So it's just to advise members of that.
Okay, so at this moment in time, we'll continue with virtual. I agree with, it is great to get in to meet people and have a chat and talk about, you know, get that contact with people. We'll arrange for maybe 3 meetings in, we'll have 1 meeting in person until we get a decision from full council. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Councillor Saunders? Yeah.
Yeah, can I just come in there, Chair? I believe the next full council is the 6th of July.
6th of July, yeah.
I think. So it's about, what, 2 or 3 weeks away? So maybe that decision will come before we get the next, I don't know, what's our next date, Georgina? Well, I can't.
I think it's the Monday, the 18th of July.
Yeah. So I mean, a decision, but as I say, it sounds as though like there's going to be a members' vote on the full council then to decide which way we go.
It's on, if it's on the agenda. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure, Georgina, whether, excuse me, it is going to full council or not. At the Constitution meeting, I think they said that they would let the committees decide, and they would run that for 6 months. So I think you need to maybe check that one out. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen or not. Once again, I would say that, you know, virtual meetings, I think you get more people attending, and there's no doubt about that. But I do think that, you know, the occasional meeting in the town hall is a really good thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Councillor Lowy, come on to you.
Yeah, I think the excellent compromise position is hybrid meetings. And in discussion with Sylvia Reynolds, she said that the town is investigating having better equipment to facilitate hybrid meetings so that we could have people coming into meetings on screen, etc., which is quite common practice now in some areas, that then it suits everybody's convenience to either be face-to-face or to join it virtually.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a great position to be able to choose how to have the meetings for each individual, whether they join it virtually or in person. That's the compromise, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, inviting people in, but we were going to get a voting system many years ago and we still haven't got it. So that's another problem, isn't it? Councillor Hobson?
Yes, Chair. Yes, that was discussed at the Constitution as well, and we're certainly not there yet. It will be one that does have a voting system on it, but we certainly not got the equipment or anything yet. It's still being looked at.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll see what happens at the next full council. But I suggest we do three meetings, virtual, and then have one live in person in the town hall, if that would all agree with that. Only if it's convenient for any guests. Obviously, we've got to think of people coming in and leaving work, as Councillor Lowy said, you know, the time travel, etc., you know, and we've got to look at fuel costs as well these days because it's absolutely crazy at the moment. So how do we all feel? Yeah, we'll go with that for now.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to set it in stone. We'll leave it floating at the moment. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Hobson, you give us a wave, or was that goodbye?
No, that was just an agreement.
Thank you very much. Okay, on that, I'm going to close this meeting. Wish you all a good day, and if you're going outside, put some suntan lotion on or take a brolly. I'm not sure. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.